December 19, 2016. Officer Marlene Davis squinted through her windshield as the wipers fought a losing battle against the heavy snowfall. Claremont, New Jersey wasn't known for harsh winters, but tonight was an exception. The dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio. All units in vicinity of Washington Avenue, we have reports of shots fired at 1749. Possible home invasion. Davis hit the sirens. 3 minutes later, she pulled up to a modest single-story house, its porch light casting a weak yellow glow against the curtain of white. Red and blue lights now bounced off neighboring windows. She was first on scene. The front door stood ajar, a dark rectangle against the snow-covered stoop. With her hand on her weapon, Davis entered. The metallic smell hit her first. Then she saw him, a man sprawled on his back in the narrow entryway, a dark stain spreading across his chest. His eyes stared vacantly at the ceiling, one hand still clutching his phone. A package notification glowed on the screen. Dispatch, we need paramedics at 1749 Washington. Male victim, gunshot wound to the chest, no signs of life. But she already knew it was too late. Detective Robert Harmon hated snow. It contaminated crime scenes, masked footprints, and soaked through his shoes. 2 days after the shooting, he stood in Brandon Keel's living room, thumbing through the case file. Victim was 32, single, worked as a systems analyst for Edison Financial. Moved in 3 weeks ago, his partner, Detective Sophia Chen, read aloud. No criminal record, no known enemies. Door to door hasn't turned up much. Harmon nodded, studying the room. Cardboard moving boxes still lined one wall. A laptop sat closed on the coffee table, surrounded by takeout containers. What do we know about the shot? He asked. Single round, close range. Me says the bullet passed straight through, lodged in the wall behind. Ballistics is running it now. Harmon walked to the front door, trying to picture the scene. So he opens the door, probably expecting his package, and takes one to the chest. No struggle, no robbery. This wasn't random, Sophia. Neighbors heard the shot at 8:43 p.m. Mrs. Alvarez across the street says she looked out after hearing it, but couldn't see much through the snow. Harmon frowned. What about security cameras? That's the problem. Street cameras were caked with snow. We're pulling footage from private homes in a 2-block radius, but so far, nothing clear enough to ID our shooter. Harmon moved to the window, looking out at the neighboring homes. The house directly next door caught his attention, identical in layout but with a well-maintained garden now buried under snow. Who lives there? 1747. That would be Gerald and Lisa Brentwood. Late 50s, long-time residents. We interviewed them yesterday. Gerald's retired from construction, wife works at the DMV. Said they barely knew Keel, just waved hello when he moved in. Something about that bothered Harmon, but he couldn't put his finger on why. Let's look at the footage we do have again, he said. Something isn't adding up. In the cramped video analysis room at the precinct, technical analyst Jamie Woodson queued up the footage. This is from the Petersons' house, 2 doors down. Camera faces the street, so it doesn't show the actual shooting, but watch this. The timestamp read December 16, 3 days before the murder. A figure in dark clothing walked slowly past Brandon's house, then the Brentwoods, then circled back. Now here's the 17th, Woodson continued, switching feeds. The same figure, this time lingering near the Brentwoods' mailbox for nearly a minute before moving on. And the 18th, day before the murder. Now the figure stood across the street, partially obscured by a parked car, watching both houses. Jesus, Harmon muttered. They were casing the place. But which place? Chen asked. Look at the way they keep watching both houses. Harmon leaned closer to the screen. Run the footage from the day of the murder again. Woodson clicked through to December 19. The snow made visibility poor, but at 8:39 p.m., a dark figure approached Washington Avenue from the east, walking with purpose. "That's our shooter," Harmon said. 4 minutes later, Brandon Keel is dead. Chen studied the grainy image. "They're heading straight for the houses, but in this snow, with no visible numbers." "Pull everything we have on the Brentwoods," Harmon said suddenly. "I want to know if they've had any threats, any reason someone might target them." "You think the shooter hit the wrong house?" Chen asked. Brandon Keel was an ordinary guy who just moved in. No enemies, no debts we can find. But someone spent 3 days watching these houses before the shooting. Harmon stared at the screen, where the fuzzy figure disappeared into the whiteness. "I think our victim was a case of mistaken identity." The background check on Gerald and Lisa Brentwood came back clean, too clean, in Harmon's opinion. No outstanding debts, no criminal records, not even a parking ticket in the last decade. They paid their taxes on time, attended the local Presbyterian church, and kept to themselves. "Nothing jumps out," Chen said, flipping through their file. "Gerald retired 5 years ago with a decent pension. Lisa's been at the DMV for 15 years. What about family?" Harmon asked. Chen hesitated. "One son, Mark Brentwood. That's where it gets interesting." She pulled out a mug shot of a young man with Gerald's jawline and cold eyes. "Mark was arrested 6 years ago in an undercover sting. Mid-level dealer moving product for a Newark operation. Served 18 months, then fell off the grid. No current address, no employment records. Parents never mentioned a son during questioning," Harmon noted. "Would you?" Chen countered. "The interesting part is how his case wrapped up so quickly. He was facing 5 to 7 years minimum, but cut a deal. Rumor is he gave up names." Harmon's mind raced. "So the son of our neighbors informed on a drug operation, then disappeared. And 6 years later, someone's watching their house before a shooting occurs next door. It's thin," Chen warned. "But it's all we've got. Let's talk to the Brentwoods again." Lisa Brentwood's hands trembled as she set down 2 mugs of coffee. Her husband sat rigid on their floral sofa, eyes darting between the detectives. "We've already told you everything we know about the young man next door," Gerald said, his voice steady but strained. "It's terrible what happened, but we barely knew him." "We're exploring all angles, Mr. Brentwood," Harmon said gently. "Sometimes in cases like these, the smallest detail can help." "We have nothing to add," Gerald insisted. "Tell us about your son, Mark," Chen said, watching their reactions carefully. The change was immediate. Lisa's hand flew to her throat, and Gerald's face hardened. "Mark has nothing to do with this," he said flatly. "We didn't say he did," Harmon noted. "But we know about his conviction, and the deal he made." Lisa's eyes welled with tears. "We haven't seen Mark in years. After he got out, he said it was safer for everyone if he disappeared." "Safer from whom?" Chen pressed. "Those people he testified against," Gerald said, lowering his voice. "He was afraid they'd come after him, or us." "Has anyone threatened you?" Harmon asked. The Brentwoods exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. 2 months ago, someone left a dead rat in our mailbox, Lisa whispered. "And last month, a car would park across the street sometimes. Just watching." "Why didn't you report this?" Chen asked. "Because Mark told us never to go to the police," Gerald said bitterly. "Said it would only make things worse." "Mr. Brentwood," Harmon leaned forward, "we have reason to believe the person who killed Brandon Keel may have been targeting your house by mistake." Lisa gasped. The shooter had been watching both houses. "Your son made enemies. Brandon was roughly your height and build, Mr. Brentwood. You both wear similar dark puffer jackets. In a snowstorm, with obscured house numbers." "Oh God," Lisa whispered. "That poor young man." Gerald stood abruptly. I think you should leave now. We can offer protection, Chen began. No, Gerald cut her off. We're done talking. Please go. As they left, Harmon noticed a suitcase in the hallway and moving boxes stacked by the stairs. Brandon Keel's funeral was held on a clear, cold day. His parents stood shell-shocked beside the grave, while his older brother Michael stared stonily at the casket. After the service, Harmon approached Michael. I'm Detective Harmon. I'm investigating your brother's case. Michael Keel's eyes were bloodshot. Have you found who did this? Not yet, but we're following leads. Did Brandon ever mention problems with his neighbors? Or seeing anyone suspicious around his new house? Michael shook his head. He was excited about the place. Said it was quiet, perfect for working from home. He never mentioned feeling unsafe. Did he have any enemies that you know of? Anyone who might want to harm him? Brandon was the least confrontational person I knew. He avoided drama, kept his head down. Michael's voice cracked. This makes no sense. It has to be random. We don't think it was, Harmon said carefully. We believe the shooter may have targeted the wrong house. Michael's expression darkened. So my brother died because some psycho can't read house numbers. We're still piecing things together. If Brandon mentioned anything unusual, even something that seemed unimportant at the time. He didn't, Michael snapped, then softened. Look, I'm going through his things this weekend. If I find anything, I'll call you. As Michael walked away, Harmon couldn't shake the feeling that Brandon's death was just the beginning of a much larger story. 1 week after the shooting, the Brentwood house stood empty, a sold sign swaying in the front yard. They moved out 3 days ago, Chen reported. Realtor says they accepted an offer well below market value, cash deal, closed in 48 hours. They're running, Harmon said. Can't blame them if they think they were the real target. Harmon shook his head. They know more than they're telling us. Track where they went. It took some digging, but a property record search revealed a purchase in rural Vermont, a cabin on 5 acres, bought through a trust with no listed beneficiaries. They covered their tracks, but not well enough, Chen said, dropping the file on Harmon's desk. Question is, do we pursue them? Harmon ran a hand through his thinning hair. What about the Newark connection? Any leads on who Mark Brentwood might have informed on? That's where it gets murky. The case files are partially sealed, and the detective who ran the operation retired to Florida 3 years ago. Convenient, Harmon muttered. Chen leaned against his desk. I spoke to an old contact in narcotics. Reading between the lines, Mark gave up information on a distribution network run by the Vasquez family. Mid-level operation, but violent when crossed. Are they still active? Diminished, but present. The leaders went away on RICO charges, but the younger generation stepped in. My contact says they have a long memory for betrayal. Harmon stared at the crime scene photos spread across his desk. Brandon Keel's unseeing eyes seemed to demand justice. So we have a drug organization with a grudge, a family in hiding, and an innocent victim caught in the middle. He sighed. But still no solid evidence linking them to the shooting. The case is going cold, Robert, Chen said gently. He knew she was right. Without witnesses or clear footage, they had theories but nothing concrete. Give me a few more days, he said. 3 months passed. The Keel case file migrated to Harmon's open but inactive drawer. Spring came to Claremont, melting away the last reminders of that snowy night. Then Michael Keel called. I found something, he said, voice tight with suppressed emotion. Going through Brandon's old laptop. There's an email draft dated December 17, 2 days before he died. Harmon met him at a coffee shop near the precinct. Michael passed over a printed copy of the email, never sent but saved in drafts. Mom, something weird happened today. A guy approached me outside my house, asked if I was Brentwood's boy. I said he had the wrong person, I'd just moved in. He seemed confused, then apologized and left. Probably nothing, but felt off. Anyway, dinner Sunday still good? B. Harmon read it twice. Did he mention this to anyone else? Michael shook his head. That's the thing, I called Mom. She never got this email, never heard about any strange encounter. He never sent it, Harmon mused. Maybe he decided it wasn't worth mentioning. Or maybe he was going to tell us in person at dinner, Michael said bitterly. Dinner he never made it to. Harmon carefully folded the paper. This helps, Michael. It confirms our theory that Brandon was mistaken for someone connected to the Brentwoods. Does it get you any closer to catching his killer? Harmon couldn't lie. Not directly. But it's another piece of the puzzle. Michael's face fell. It's never going to be solved, is it? I'm not giving up, Harmon promised, though he knew the odds grew longer with each passing day. A year passed. The Keel case joined dozens of others in the department's unsolved files. Harmon checked in periodically, but no new leads emerged. Brandon's house sold twice, the second owners unaware of its bloody history. Then, on the anniversary of the shooting, Harmon received a call from the front desk. Detective, there's a Lisa Brentwood here to see you. She looked older, more frail than he remembered, her eyes constantly scanning the room as they sat in the interview room. I shouldn't be here, she said quietly. Gerald doesn't know. But I couldn't live with it anymore, the guilt, the knowing. Harmon leaned forward. Knowing what, Mrs. Brentwood? That boy died because of us. Because of what Mark did. Her hands twisted in her lap. A month before it happened, Mark called us. First time in years. He said people were asking about him, about where he was living. He warned us to be careful. Did he say who these people were? She shook her head. He never used names. But he was scared. Gerald wanted to sell the house then, but we'd lived there 20 years. It was our home. What changed your mind after the shooting? The night it happened, when we heard the gunshot, Gerald looked out the window. He saw someone running away from the house next door. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He recognized him, detective. It was Luis Vasquez. Harmon controlled his expression, keeping his voice level. Luis Vasquez. The son of Marco Vasquez? She nodded. Mark had dated Luis's sister years ago, before the arrest. That's how he got involved with them in the first place. Why didn't Gerald tell us this before? He was afraid, she said simply. Afraid they'd come after us next if we talked. So we ran. Mrs. Brentwood, this is crucial information in a murder investigation. Your husband withheld evidence. To protect us, she interrupted. You don't know these people. What they're capable of. I need you to make an official statement. Her eyes widened with fear. I can't. I needed to tell someone. For that poor young man's sake. She stood, gathering her coat. I've said too much already. Mrs. Brentwood, please. But she was already heading for the door. I'm sorry. I can't. By the time Harmon arranged for patrol cars to follow her, Lisa Brentwood had vanished. The address in Vermont led to an empty cabin, sold months earlier. 18 months after Brandon Keel's murder, Luis Vasquez was arrested for an unrelated assault charge. Harmon and Chen interviewed him, pressing for any connection to the Keel case. Vasquez smirked through the entire interview. Don't know what you're talking about, detective. Never been to Claremont in my life. His alibi for December 19, 2016 was solid. Security footage showed him at a Newark nightclub from 8 p.m. until closing. Either Lisa Brentwood had lied, or Gerald had been mistaken. The case stalled again. In September 2020, nearly 4 years after the murder, Michael Keel received a package with no return address at his Manhattan apartment. Inside was a flash drive and a note that read simply, "The truth." The drive contained a single video file, shaky cell phone footage showing Brandon on what appeared to be his driveway, arguing with someone off camera. The timestamp showed December 17, 2016, 2 days before his death. A voice said clearly, "Tell your brother to pay up, or it's on you too." Brandon looked confused. "What brother? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb." "Mark Brentwood. You think changing your last name fools anyone?" "I'm not, I just moved in. I don't know any Mark." The video ended abruptly. Michael brought it straight to Harmon. "This changes everything," Harmon said, after watching it multiple times. The killer thought Brandon was Mark Brentwood's brother, not Gerald's son. "But why would they think that?" Chen asked. "And who sent this to Michael now, after all this time?" Harmon had a theory forming. "We need to look deeper into Mark Brentwood. Not just his criminal record, everything. Birth records, school history, family connections." What they found stunned both detectives. Mark Brentwood was adopted. His birth name was Mark Keel. "Jesus," Chen whispered. Brandon and Mark were actually brothers. Further digging revealed that Mark had been adopted as an infant when the Keels were going through financial hardship. The brothers never knew about each other. Different lives, different paths, until Washington Avenue brought them into fatal proximity. The Vasquez family must have discovered the connection, Harmon theorized. They thought Brandon knew where Mark was hiding, when he genuinely didn't know what they were talking about. They silenced him, Chen finished. But even with this revelation, the case remained circumstantial. The video couldn't be authenticated. The Brentwoods couldn't be located for further questioning. And Luis Vasquez, the only named suspect, had an ironclad alibi. Today, the Keel case remains officially open but unofficially stalled. No charges have ever been filed. The house at 1749, Washington Avenue has had 3 owners since Brandon's death. All report the same strange occurrence, packages arriving with no sender information, just the words, "wrong address," scrawled in red ink. Detective Harmon, now nearing retirement, keeps a photo of Brandon Keel in his desk drawer. Sometimes he takes it out, staring at the face of the man who died because of a hidden connection he never knew existed. Somewhere, Mark Brentwood, or Mark Keel, remains in hiding, perhaps unaware that his unknown brother paid the ultimate price for their shared blood. And in a quiet corner of a New Jersey cemetery, Brandon's headstone bears a simple epitaph. "Truth comes to those who wait." The Keel family is still waiting.